Welcome, emissaries. As you all know, this is our session talking about women and women leadership and the role that women play in the world. Women are the carriers and then the keepers of water. And of course, women, as they give life and birth to us all, the amniotic fluid in the womb of a mother is seawater. That is what we are all birthed in, is seawater. So it is women that bring us to life. And I am grateful and humbled to have our esteemed women with us today, who you will get a chance to meet and connect with. And we're going to start off by having Georgie Badiel, who is a member of our WIA community and WELL community, to invoke this session with a water blessing from her traditional land and language of Burkina Faso, Africa. Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for having me. I would like to start this, I would say, this session by asking all of you to close your eyes, please, if you can. I would like for you to center yourself. Think about this morning when you woke up. Think about the first glass of water you have. Inhale and exhale. Inhale again and exhale. I'm going to share with you a few words of gratitude that my grandmother was always say before we drink water or before we eat. In my dialect, which is Grunsi in Burkina Faso. Ne wolu. Ne wo wene gakulele nije. Lidi bi neje mbikakaje. Yo yidudu. Yidudu le were wene gakulele. Yidudun le pe wone gakulele. Kebeni wone ma wozamo is yi fabi. Ni wo dudu ni ma wo yi fabi. Parce que ni jene. To translate is water is life. Water is all we have. Water is us. Only God provides water. And all we can say is thank you. Thank you for water. You can open your eyes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we move into our speakers, something that I guess we wanted to sort of bring up and have you be thinking about is the fact that women around the world are spending more than 200 million hours collecting water every single day. And what that amount of time looks like and what could be done, what we should be doing with the amount of time that women are spending gathering water. And now we will move into.
Do you know that thing I signed up for? It's like a water thing. I have a meeting every Monday, Thursday.
I think Connor, you're unmuted.
Water emissary program.
So,
Just
Madeline, you can
talks
mute
about
him.
water. It connects you with like
Oh, there we go. Oh, beautiful. Okay, moving on to our speakers. So we have a really awesome panel. I'm not sure if Rachel's going to be joining us, but we do have Karen from Ivokwa and Georgie who will be speaking about their experiences and then opening it up for us to all have a conversation about their work both as women in the water sector and advocating on behalf of women and women's rights to water and sanitation as well.
Thanks,
Karen, if
Madeline.
you'd like to kick us off, or Stuart, if you have some words you'd like to share.
I just want to say that to introduce Karen, that Karen and I met through mutual friends and community, and in very short order, we became fast friends, had so many connections, of course, water being the foundational aspect. And Karen is one of the leading voices and energies in the water world, in the corporate water world. Many of you have, I hopefully, heard of Evoca, which is a leading company. And Karen is deeply involved in lots of their innovative practices and technologies for bringing water to all of us in our lives to enrich our lives, our health, and our planet. So I'll let Karen take it away.
Okay, great to meet you, everyone. As Stuart said, my name is Karen Meidlinger. I actually pronounce it Karen, like car in the drive. So, but I answer to Karen too. Lots of people call me Karen. Lots of people call me Karen, but technically it's Karen. I grew up in Swaziland in Africa, so I had a deep appreciation of water from my upbringing. I mean, we did have running water, but I remember having to boil water because of cholera outbreaks, and you know, it didn't always come out of your tap if you turn the tap on. Georgie can tell you that. So most of the time it did, but not always. Sometimes it would come out and it would be brown. So I think if you grow up not always having water at the tap, you know, you have a different appreciation for it, a deeper appreciation. Anyway, then I moved to England when I was 12, got very interested in the environment. I remember at that time that the Amazon rainforest was getting cut down to make way for cattle farms. And so that started my environmental journey around 12. And I studied marine biology and then marine ecology. But it is very hard to get good jobs in that field because there are lots of people who do it for free. So somehow I found my way into business, and I've really, you know, spent quite a lot of time in this industry. Stuart was very generous in his introduction. I really probably not known in the water industry outside of this tiny slice of water tech, but thank you, Stuart, for too kind. But I started a venture firm to invest in water technology because I could see, I remember watching Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth, thinking, oh, this is going to be bad, climate change. And, you know, I remember reading that people will most feel the effects of climate change through water. Actually, there'll be too much, there'll be floods, there'll be too little, there'll be droughts. You know, you'll be grabbing for source water that you don't normally use, so it'll be contaminated. You know, we're really going to feel the effects, and we already are, right? We can see it every day. So that got me sort of into water, and that, you know, because it was a venture fund, we were on the very tech end of the water industry. The water industry is huge, as many of you know. I think it's in the 700-800 billion now size, grows 5 to 7% a year. It's a massive industry, but a lot of that is pumps and pipes and fire hydrants, and you know, the technology piece is pretty small. It's probably only 10% of that. So I spent a lot of time in the tech end, and then I could see IoT technologies coming into the water industry hard and fast. Digital twins, it was all sort of getting more, it went from this old steady industrial sort of business and municipal business to then becoming, catching up with other industries really in terms of digital. So that was exciting. So I actually spent a little bit of time in the enterprise IoT, and then found my way to Evoqua Water Technologies, which just quickly is the old Siemens water technology business. So Siemens spun it out around sort of 2015, 2016. It went public around 2017, I believe. Before me, I've only been there since 2019. So it's traded on under the ticker Aqua. So the stock gets small, so the stock bounces all over the place. But I started at Evoqua in corporate development, so do an M&A. So was looking to do some venture investments, and Evoqua had appetite for it. And then, as you all know, the world changed in March 2020, and suddenly everyone went into cash preservation mode. So venture investments were not on the table anymore. I did help with some M&A, but then got very, because of my digital background, I then sort of pivoted over to a digital innovation role about 7 months ago, and digital business transformation. We're trying to transform our own business, but a lot of that, even though not necessarily doing it for customers, if we transform our own business, it's serving the customers better. So we're able to, through digital transformation, offer industrial companies water as a service, or even we even do build and operates, where we will build a water or wastewater treatment system for them. We'll finance it, we'll run it for them. So they don't even have to think about it. So it's outsourced water, if you will. We don't do it on the municipal side, we do it on the industrial side. And the water industry does lag behind other industries, but now you can see a lot of groups are, embracing digital twin. I mean, it's finally getting to where, say, big manufacturing firms are that are not in water. We're getting that. It's changing a lot quickly. So that's probably enough, is it, Stuart? Or Madeline, is that enough? Is that long enough?
Sorry, I was on mute. I wanted to be quiet.
Yeah. Is that what you wanted me to cover? Anything else you wanted to?
I'd love for you just to talk about the industry and how you see the industry evolving from, as you've already said, this, digitization side. But let's talk about it from a leadership side and the role that you believe women can, will, and are playing as yourself.
Well, I would say the water industry to date has been dominated by men, engineers, but that is changing a lot. Those men are retiring. Then, if you look at any business within Evoqua, you look at the number of people who are going to retire a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. It's in some of them, it's half their workforce is walking out the door in the next 1 to 2 to 3 years. So, who's coming in, right? Are all those older engineer men going to be replaced by young engineer men? Some will, but I think you're seeing it become a lot more diverse. There are more women, there are more people of color coming into water. And in fact, the US Water Alliance feels like it's actually such a crisis that they have created a whole toolkit to help water utilities recruit diverse people, because they haven't even tried really, but now they have to. There's a real workforce shortage. Now digital can help with that, right? Running a big water plant and a big wastewater plant has traditionally been very body intensive. I mean, you have to send people out, roll trucks, and digital can help to some extent, make everything more predictive. And, you don't have to run out every week and change a filter. If you can tell when it's not working, maybe you only have to do it every 3 weeks. So that's helping. Digital technologies are helping to these big water wastewater utilities or industrial groups, the running water and wastewater systems, can help them all be more efficient and not need so much labor. Did I get at your question?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So let's shift to Georgie. And Georgie, if you can share with our emissaries a little bit about your life, your connection to water, and then the work that you're doing yourself and your foundation that is doing for, particularly with educating women engineers in Burkina Faso and probably elsewhere on the globe.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stuart. I wanted to say, Karen, you are amazing, and I felt inspired listening to you. To start about my story, the way that I would say, end up on the water industry, it wasn't something that is completely planned, but I will call it kind of like this was a destiny for me. Kind of like I was born to basically do this. And this is how my journey started. So as a young girl, my grandmother used to wake me up at 6 a.m. to go fetch water. And we'll fetch water for 3 hours. Fetching water wasn't something that I liked because I wasn't a morning person, and I'm still not a morning person. I'm sure a lot of you will relate on that. So I was very much blessed to become Miss Burkina Faso in 2003 and then Miss Africa in 2004. Right after that, I went to Europe to start an international modeling career, where, of course, I was in Paris. Everything was la vie en rose, things was beautiful, nice and amazing. And a few years later, I decided to go back home to see my sister, who was almost 9 months pregnant, so that I can welcome the baby with her and spend some time with her. Unfortunately, I went to see my sister in a struggle world where she had to wake up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. to get water. That is when I actually kind of like that made me think it was kind of like when we were a kid, we used to do that. And then now my sister is a woman and she still have to do that. That is when I decided, it hurt me so badly that I decided to start to become an advocate on access to clean drinking water. So what I was doing, I first co-founded an organization called Models for Water with a friend of mine. And all we were doing, we were raising funds, giving it to other organizations to build wells in villages in Burkina Faso and other places. But all these organizations that we were working with actually wasn't working in Burkina Faso. Most of wasn't working in my village, sorry, not in Burkina Faso, but in my village. So 100% of the funds were raised, giving to this organization, and no one will actually work in my village. I was happy to be able to give back, but at the same time, my grandmother village still didn't have access to clean drinking water. And I said to myself, I said, just be patient, your turn will come, the turn of having a well in your grandmother village will come. And my friend reached out telling me that she doesn't want to continue the organization anymore because it was a lot of work. We were in the peak of our modeling career, where she will be in Australia and I will be in London trying to coordinate a lot of meetings. So we just couldn't do it. Too young, and I would say we were too young and not experienced. So after that experience, I was kind of like, I still have to find a way to bring clean water to my grandmother village. I have to find a way. So I decided to share my childhood story with a book publisher, which was sold at with Penguin. So Penguin took the deal, and I decided to give 100% of my bookshelf of my bookshare to another organization again, so that they can build a well in my grandmother village. That organization took the money. They went to my village. They told me that, listen, we don't know how they will take care of the well. So we are going to basically build a well somewhere else. I was mad because I gave them enough money to actually build 2 wells, even if they wanted. So I decided to start the Georgie Badiel Foundation. It was founded in 2015. And in less than 7 years, we were able to bring clean drinking water to over 300,000 people. I love that when Karen was talking, she was saying that, you know, the water industry is dominated by men. I'm working very hardly to change that, because when I started the Georgie Badiel Foundation, I would go to villages where they have a well, but the well is broken. Women still have to walk 3 hours, 4 hours away from their village. Imagine, to come back home with a bucket of water that cannot even supply them to wash the dishes. They just have it just to drink and maybe cook. So I asked this woman, I say, you have a well in your village, and you telling me that you walk 3 hours away from your village to go fetch a bucket of water for your family? They're like, yes. And I'm like, why don't you fix it? They say, we don't know how to fix it. I said, let me teach you how to fix it. So in 6 years, we were able to train over 174 women, teaching them basic engineering so that they can restore and maintain these wells. And the funniest thing about that is, like Karen was saying, that this world, the water sector is dominated by men. There is men that the government actually train to learn to restore and maintain these wells, but they will not do it unless the community pay them such a big amount to do it. So they're like, we're gonna watch you walk 3 hours, 4 hours away from your village to go get water. We don't care unless you pay me so much money. Now with the Women Empowerment Project that we put in place is incredible. Women are independent. We're teaching them basic engineering. We're changing their life. We sustain the water well. It really is amazing. I'm gonna stop here because I can talk all night long.
I don't think you need to stop, Georgie, but if there's specific questions, I know Karen, I think, might have a time challenge with herself. So I'd like to, as always, have our emissaries come forward with your questions, your comments, and have you engage with both Karen and Georgie.
Absolutely.
So who's got the first question? Don't be shy.
I didn't have a question necessarily, but I did have a comment for Georgie, that it just sounds so frustrating that they could have done it and they just didn't. It just sounded so frustrating.
Yes. That time was just so, that's why when I started the conversation, I mentioned that it was kind of like a sort of a calling for me, because I just couldn't understand. I couldn't understand that I've raised thousands of dollars to put into this project, and like why one organization is not able to at least bring one well to my grandmother village. And then finally, I found this organization, giving them my own money and say that, you know, build that one well, and then that money was even more than enough for them to do 2, and I was going to raise more money for them, but they just couldn't do it. And the craziest thing is the excuse they provide about my community not being able to restore and maintain these wells wasn't true, because that well that they built in another school, the Georgie Badiel Foundation is the one restoring it, fixing it, So I guess it happened because God wanted me to stand up and do the work, you know. Yeah, great comment.
Did you see a decrease in gender-based violence in communities where women had closer access to water? Or could you speak to sort of the experiences related to that at all with the work that you've done?
Would you please repeat your question?
Sure. I just meant, have you, in communities where women were able to repair wells and they had closer access to water, did that also tend to lead to a decrease in gender-based violence or in violence against women? And sort of what was the extent of that, if you did see that in those communities?
Yes, absolutely. When we first start to train women, I remember people were laughing about us. They were laughing about this woman. They were laughing about me because all they were saying is, we don't think this project will sustain. This woman have no knowledge. They are nobody. They cannot do anything. They cannot do anything for themselves. That was the mentality that we have. And that was all of that were coming from men when we started the project. And I was like, sure, I love to be challenged. By the way, I enjoy challenge. I live to be challenged. So the first 4 women, I was like, sure, no problem. We are going to make sure that we keep them very closely and work hard with them. This woman, the level of education is like 5th grade or less. So imagine, we actually took building wells is engineering. You have to be an engineer to be able to build wells. So I work closely with my engineers, telling them that you are going to break down building wells in a level of a 5th grade, in a level that a person with a 5th grade education can understand it and can actually do it if they want to do it. So the engineer did that. We started the theoretical curriculum, and then after the on-the-ground practice curriculum, from 4 women we went to 50, and then 100, and then 114. And men were watching us in the community saying that we want to be trained too. And I was kind of like looking at them, laughing, kind of like, you the same people telling me that whatever we were doing will not lead anywhere. So now you're going to have this woman that you are brought down teach you whenever they can their knowledge about fixing and maintaining wells for your community. And in terms of safety for women, between us, working to fetch water require a lot of physical work. Sometimes there is places where women sleep on the road to go fetch water. They go, they will leave today and they will come back the next day with water. So this woman for sure face sexual aggression, animal aggression, because he's in the middle of the nature, you know. So but definitely I would say that the community that we work with, we have gained respect from men, and our program is growing. And I hope I answered your question, Madeleine.
You did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Georgie, while we're not specifically talking about this, I think it'd be really helpful for you to share your personal experience.
Mhm.
You know, we live in, as you've said, we live in America, and we're so fortunate to be there. We turn on the tap and water's there. Sanitation hygiene is really the largest global issue, with at least 2.5 billion people, mostly women and girls, that don't have access to a sink and a toilet. And could you just share with us, what is that like? How does that affect the community? How does that affect young girls and their ability to go to school, and just all the issues of safety that Madeline was talking about? Could you just really, in your heart, share what it was like.
Mhm. Absolutely. I would say younger, as a teenager, first of all, when I first started to have my period, I didn't know nothing about period, by the way, because unfortunately, I just wasn't taught that it happened. The biggest challenge with access to clean drinking water, I remember I was just sitting there and I start to bleed and it wasn't pretty at all. And all I was thinking, I was just going back and forth trying to shower every time. And I have a friend, peace be with her because she passed away, Jenny, but she told me, she said, wow, you've been showering a lot, you've been wasting water. And all I'm thinking is I'm bleeding, like something is wrong. I don't know what it is. And if my father found out that I'm bleeding, he might think that I did something wrong. That is what was on my head, not even the water aspect of like me going every 5 minutes, taking a shower. I come back and then I have to go again and then I have to go again. And my friend all look at me, she said, oh, you actually got your period. Let me call your sister. She's gonna help you and etc., etc. But I would say that there were moments where, of course, you skip school because you don't have access to proper toilet. How do you change as a teenager in school during your period time, especially if your flowing is nonstop? So unfortunately, a lot of young girls, I would say, miss school for that. I did miss school a few times, not so much. My dad was always on me, like, you don't want, you sick, you're not sick, you go into school. But it was definitely something that was uncomfortable, that was hard to deal with. And one of my craziest moments, I would say, with access to clean drinking water. I was sitting in class during a very hot day. In Burkina Faso, it can be hot to 100 degrees and more because it's landlocked. The Sahel is not far from the country. And every time I step out to get water wasn't there. And I did have money to actually buy water. No access to water. I was obligated to go back to class. All I was thinking is, when am I going to have my next glass of water? So without access to clean drinking water, you cannot be educated, because I was like that, and not even listening, paying attention to what the teacher was saying, because all I was thinking about was, when would I be able to have a glass of water? I am thirsty. Yeah.
We all can't even imagine what that's like, Georgie. So thank you for sharing so vulnerably and so openly. Who else has some questions for Georgie or comments?
Hi, I have a question. So you said, like, when you started your initiative, there were people who laughed at you. So was there a lot of resistance when you started doing what you did, like from the people around, the families of the women you educated, or like the local government bodies or whatever? Because I know there are still places in the world where women are not educated, they are shamed for having periods, and there is no clean source of drinking water. So.
Yes. No, thank you for your question. Yes, when I started the Georgie Badiel Foundation, I would say that a lot of people from my family have a hard time understanding why I am going to basically dedicate my time, my life to serve other people. For them, it was kind of like, just build a well in grandma village, build a well in your dad village, and then just move on with your life. You know, for them, it's like, okay, if that hurts you, just go ahead and just do the basic. But to me, it was more than that. To me, it was kind of like, there is no justice for the poorest. There is no justice for them. And if one person doesn't stand up and make that difference, basically, no one else will do. Because I was doing that when I was a child. Now I am a woman. My sister has to do that. Then that means that maybe my children and my nephews will be doing that? No. If I don't do it, nobody will do it. That is actually how I saw it. And I would say until today, and you know, in Africa, people have mentality, have a very close mind on foundations. You know, I don't blame them. I don't blame them because a lot of organizations have messed it up out there. And they did mess it up for myself too, you know? So yes, I have family resilience, I have family fights, but all my belief was and is someone need to do it, and I'm gonna stand up and do it. Yeah. Mm.
That's beautiful, Georgie. And I just want to comment on what Georgie said. There's a lot of NGOs that are out there that profess to be doing activities which are truly being of service to others and to community. And sometimes that's not actually the case. And you can check through many sources like Charity Navigator as an example to see how much of the dollars that are raised really go to projects. And as Georgie said, her own experience was that a lot of times they're just not really being good stewards and fiduciaries of those monies. And so I share that with you all for you to understand that you need to be discerning, you need to question, and you need to use your minds to really make sure that the people that are saying they're doing what they are actually doing that, which gets back to a consumer product. Just because somebody says that they're sourcing a product from, you know, Ghana, doesn't mean they definitely are. And, you know, you need to really be careful in all of your actions, and particularly as a consumer of what you purchase, to truly find companies that you can trust and are aligned with your personal values for caring for people on the planet. Who else has a question for Georgie?
I was just curious if you've ever had any issues with like droughts or just not being able to find water in areas like that you want to build a well, and kind of what you do to ensure that area gets a well or somehow conserve water, or is there anything you can do?
Thank you, Shelby. This is a very good question. I like that. My grandmother was someone that is very humble, that is very kind, that is very thoughtful. In 2018, and she had never asked me for anything. If anything, when I gave her something, she worried. She's like, no, I don't want to take it back. No, keep it for yourself. She's that type of grandmother that really, really care, you know, that will not want to take anything from grandchildren, even her children. So in 2018, she called and she said, we are hungry. And when she said, we are hungry, I was confused. I was like, we are hungry. Like, what do you mean? I know there is food, there's water. Like, what do you mean? She said, no, the whole village. You know, and my grandmother she's someone that is thoughtful. Like, whatever, if she have one bag of rice, she will give it to everybody. She will share it with everybody. And then just telling me that we are hungry, like the whole village is hungry. And I'm like, wow, coming from her, that's a very big deal. Then there were men that we were working with in the north of the country. He as well reached out to me and say, my people are hungry. There is a famine going on. And I have never seen, I would say, famine. So I flew to Burkina Faso to just go and make sure that, like, because I've never seen something like that. So we sent tons of food to my village and other villages just to make sure that they have like a reserve of food. I went to the north to Pibare to meet with the mayor and kind of like have an understanding of what's going on. And it was my first time to look into kids' eyes that were able to only eat twice a week. Imagine being able to only eat twice a week. I was shocked. And with the research that I made, and I was trying to understand like what was going on. Basically what happened with climate change, we didn't have enough rain because of climate change. We didn't have enough rain, so the whole place was completely dry. Whatever they actually cultivated, whatever they actually planted didn't grow because there wasn't enough water. They work hard, but just no water to make their food grow. That's why they actually end up in famine. And the Georgie Badiel Foundation, we've been fighting against desertification as well, so that is our way for fighting against, I would say, climate change, planting trees. So we pushed right away from communities.
Yeah, well, Georgie, you bring up such a critical point because, once again, people don't often connect water to food and to trees and to climate change. And water is the central issue in all of those. And when we make that connection, hopefully that will have people understand and look at water from not just a commodity and a cost basis, but really looking at water from the value that water provides to our lives, because without it, all life ends.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Georgie before we complete tonight's session?
Don't be shy.
This is your, I'm not going to say once in a lifetime, but it's a special opportunity to be able to get Georgie in such a focused time in such a small group. All right. Shelby?
Sorry,
Shelby have another question. Shelby.
Sorry, I looked on your website. I saw on your website that you have one solar powered well. Is that something new you're doing, and how is it working? I was just curious.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. So basically, when we started the Georgie Badiel Foundation, I would say the cheapest way for us to provide access to clean drinking water for people was simply building wells. Solar power wells are more expensive, and it was so hard for us to find, like, I would say, donors to invest in that. And in 2019, I told my engineer that we have to actually switch it up. And we should actually make have this first well to be first experience for us, so that we can learn how really, what's the difference of the impact that could make. And we build that in the health clinic. In the health clinic, where unfortunately women were going there to give birth, but there wasn't water at all. So we did it there, and it was very successful. Now moving to this year program and for the future, we are going to build solar power wells. We want to actually find a way to put like an end to a program of just building wells, because we were able last year to purchase our own drilling well machine, which will allow us to have the cost of our wells comes down. So that say we can build solar power wells now for communities. And the difference between a well and a solar power well is the solar power well is a little bit, the faucet is like what you have in your house. You know, you come in, it's luxury, I'll call it. You know, you come in, you open it, and then just water just flow, and it's nice, you know. And then the water pump is like, you have to like go ahead and like pump for hours, you know. It's a workout. I would say it's a nice workout, you know. That's a difference. And the solar power have a big tank where actually water is actually retained. So whenever you open the faucet to get water, the tank is refilled. Yeah. I hope I explained it right.
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting.
Thanks, Shelby. So you will see more of these solar power wells.
Yeah, and there's a company that I'm not sure they'll present to the emissaries this time, but hopefully they will. It's a company called, oh, what is Andy's company? Source. And they operate primarily in the developing world by having thermal solar collectors, where they have just devices that take the sun, and in these collectors, in these, you know, we'll call it glass shells, that they bring in the sunlight, and the sunlight creates this heat and condensation and provides drinking water just through the sun. So Georgie's realizing the solar is a critical area for the future, for looking at ways that we can not only attract water, but we can purify it as well.
I will check out SUS.
Yeah, I'll be happy to connect you up with Neil Grimmer, who's the president. Yeah.
Thank you, Stewart.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just going to add that it used to be that the water from air was only applicable in places where it was fairly high in terms of the humidity. But there's been so many improvements in the last decade that now even fairly arid climates, you know, where the air is pretty dry, they're still able to get enough for, you know, household use. So that's a real possibility. I was going to ask you too, do you have to treat the groundwater in any way, or is it drinkable just as it is coming from the pump?
So basically everything is already on the system. Basically, once it's built, it's already on the system, and 100% of all our wells, all our new built wells, the water is analyzed by the National Office of Water in Burkina Faso before we actually close it to have the community start to consume it. So water safety is very important for us. Clean water is very important, and the health of our community is very important for us. So we collaborate with the National Office of Water to analyze the water before the community start to drink it or consume it.
That's great, because, you know, oftentimes the quantity of water is limited actually by its quality. So there may be water, it may look like there's a lot of water, but is it usable? Is it drinkable? Is it potable water? So that's great to hear that you got a collaboration with the people who can test the water as well.
Thank you.
Good point, West. Madeline,
we have
a question.
Yeah, we do. We have a question.
Oh, mine was just a quick question. I was just curious to see, like, do you think that the solar wells or solar powered wells are more like, I guess, environmentally friendly, and also do they work as, or more like, are they as efficient as the other ones? Like, are there pros and cons compared to just the wells that you were doing?
Yes, I would say that the solar power well, first of all, the depth of the water is very important. When we drill, we need to have a certain depth of water on the ground to actually have it all as a water pump well, or as a solar power well. It really depends on how much water we actually find on the ground. Why solar power wells are very important is because people save time when they go get the water. It's like, you just imagine if you have to pump, like, first of all, when we build the well, it's for community where there is 500 families. So imagine if 500 families, 500 people, for example, has to line up to get water, and you have to pump it all day long. And let's say you have, let's say 4 tank to fill, or 5 tank. So imagine the time that it takes, versus when it's solar power, you can just align a lot of I would say water opener, right? Like that. And they just come in and it's very quickly and they go, you know. It's very efficient to build a solar power well than a hand pump, that's for sure. And it's cleaner too. It's cleaner. There's a better, I would say, less hygiene around it.
Thank you, Georgie. Anyone else? Last dibs? Madeline, you want to wrap us up?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us tonight. I know we're sort of in the middle of midterms and spring break, and it's a busy time for everybody. So thank you for being here to have this conversation with us. Regarding recordings of previous sessions, they're like unlinked on YouTube, so we'll be sending those out to you along with a recap of tonight's session, either later tonight or tomorrow morning. And we are excited to see you on Monday as well. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Madeleine. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Stuart, thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's a gift and blessing, George, to have you here. And thanks to Karen, who had to leave earlier. And thanks to you, all the emissaries that are here, because you are our future. And we're investing in you, and we're relying on you. You are what we seek to change the world and bring us the world that we all wish for. So thank you for showing up.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.